Okay, our next presenter is a wonderful lady coming from Kenya. We are going to call her to the podium so that she comes and introduces herself. And the beauty with Kenya is it's not like our tourism, where you go out of the capital city. With Kenya, tourism is just within Nairobi. So let's put our hands together as she comes to the podium, our next presenter. Please, as you come, we would request you to introduce yourself so that our delegates will know who you are. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the warm words about my country, birth, chosen country, Kenya. As you said, I will take the opportunity to introduce myself because I tend to wear very many hats, and most people don't usually know which one I'm currently wearing. So my name is Yvonne Apiyo Brändle-Amolo. Like I said before, born, bred in Kenya. I stand here before you as a diasporian, but I also stand here before you as a Kenyan, and more importantly, the daughter of a lake that we shall not mention because unfortunately, it still has a very colonial name. I mention all of this because I live in Switzerland. I have been living in Switzerland for 26 years. I'm originally an artist. I still do art. But my artwork led me to have a very unconventional trajectory because I am also a Swiss politician. Some of you who had this have asked me, why politics in such a white country? What made you get into politics? I'll keep that part a little bit short and say, after my divorce, which our young gentleman there forgot to mention, I almost lost my Swiss passport. And in trying to fight to keep my Swiss passport, because at that time, Switzerland and Kenya did not have a bilateral agreement. So when I got married, I had to give up my Kenyan passport, give up my Kenyan citizenship. So when I got divorced, because of all these colonial stereotypes that a lot of the global north still has about us, they tried to claim that I had been in a fake marriage. So they wanted their Swiss passport back. That is something that at that time I had never heard of. Now, because of the current atmosphere, the current climate which has become more hostile towards us, this is maybe a common story. But unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I am also the daughter of the leopard. My family emblem is a leopard, and I just discovered today by talking to one of the princes here, Prince, I hope I said the name right, Nkanyiso Zulu. His family emblem is also the leopard. So in my family, when we are praising my father, we say, I am the daughter of the leopard whose back never touches the ground. And we say, it's hard to reel him in because they're so fast. I was very happy to hear that although we may not have so many kingdoms left in Kenya, our traditions are very similar. There is more that unites us as Africans than we know. The general said, we need to get rid of these borders, and we do, because we have more in common than we really understand. Thank you. Now back to the story, why and how I got into politics. I've told you the why. I was fighting for my passport. Lucky for me, I succeeded. They chose the wrong person because, like every other black woman I know, I'm a fighter. What I did, I tried to show that everything I know in the global north originated from Africa. I learned something the Swiss think is a very traditional Swiss music called yodeling. Now, yodeling, maybe it originated from Switzerland, but in Cameroon, we have deep in the forest, the rainforest, the Baka women who still yodel. Amazingly enough, I was able to find a video clip of these Baka women, pygmy women, yodeling, and we have exactly the same yodel in Switzerland. When I put it next to each other during a radio interview, because they were getting rather irritated with me when I was challenging the notion that yodeling came from Switzerland. When I put it next to each other, and I told them, this tribe has been existing for longer than yodel was recorded in Switzerland. Tell me, where did yodel come from? And you ask me why I can yodel. I'm an African woman. We can all yodel. So, showing them such examples, the next example is the Swiss traditional wrestling. It's called Schwingen in Switzerland. This wrestling is found in West Africa, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Nigeria, and amazingly enough, the men wear the same underwear in Switzerland and in West Africa. The only difference is, in Switzerland, we put sawdust on the ground so that they can wrestle. In Africa, with all the muscle we saw last night with our brothers here from the Royal Police Force, we wrestle on the sand. But the movement is the same. The tactic is the same. In Switzerland, you win a cow. In Africa, depending on your grade, cow, goat, sheep. Same, no difference. Now, where did this wrestling come from? So, by continuing to show the bridge between cultures and the importation of cultures from the cradle of mankind, I was able to show them Africa is not called the cradle of mankind for nothing. That is how I got my nickname, Black Heidi, because in Switzerland there's this little blonde girl with 2 ponytails that yodels and lives in the mountain. So they decided to name me Black Heidi because I could yodel like the Swiss, but I was African. I am African. That is how I got into politics. So now, honorable leaders, distinguished guests, although he's not here, King Robinson Tani, convener of this conference and head of the African Indigenous Governance Council, Prince, princesses, parliamentarians, brothers and sisters for the diaspora. Good evening. I was asked to talk to you about the comparative analysis of governance and maybe give some recommendations for African Renaissance. We've heard already from the previous speakers about how Africa was not necessarily only patriarchal. We had a lot of matrilineal systems, which a lot of people tend to forget. I belong to a movement called Afrofuturism. It's basically an artist movement, but anybody can join. What this movement does, we use a lot of the cyberspace, and we work a lot with the youth, because the youth are our future. We look into the past, and we retell our stories through an Afrocentric lens. For example, the stories about Queen Zinga were never heard before. Now, if you go into Netflix, there is a movie about Queen Zinga, which was actually funded, and it's a series of African queen movies that will be coming out. It's funded by Jada Pinkett Smith because she heard about this movement and she would like to fund this movement. So like my sister was also saying about the African diaspora, a lot of the African diaspora want to come back home. Not just the past African diaspora, the present African diaspora. Not just those who were enslaved, but those who also willingly moved to Europe, want to come back or are still back. I go home at least 4 times a year. And my aim is to bring back what I can from the global north to the global south. So we should work more with the African diaspora. So, another favorite of mine also, just a quick example again, is Queen Mektalili from Kenya. Yeah? Mektalili wa Mwenza was a Giriama queen, and she successfully fought the colonialists. In fact, which also reminds me again about last night, she was famous for her dancing tactics. She taught her warriors how to fight with dance moves. So when the colonialists watched her teaching dancing, they didn't understand that she was teaching her warriors how to fight back. So they kept trying, and it took them so long to capture this woman. So yesterday, when I heard that the dance troupe here was actually the Royal Police Force, it fell into place, because we use such creative ways to go about life. People underestimate what we are capable of. We speak more than one language, because we don't just speak the oral language. We speak music. Using music, we tell tales, we tell our stories, you know? We had an oral culture, and we need to keep it going forward. So the comparison between this governance, I can tell you, we will look at it through an Afrocentric complementary lens, because we need to look through the customary indigenous systems rooted in African historic practices and combine it with the modern constitutional state institutions shaped by the colonial legacies and the global norms. We need to bridge the gap, like I've been trying to do, for us to be able to move forward, for us to be able to carry on our legacies. Indigenous governance is often delivers a strong local legitimacy, and it has a lot of social cohesion, like we see what our traditional leaders are giving us. The context is always very sensitive, and they help to get rid of dispute resolutions. I mean, they help to encourage dispute resolutions, sorry. And it's very sustainable. It's a resource for stewardship, and it should be embedded in our community values, because it is also based on the community. And we should not forget to add the oral knowledge into this. Now, by contrast, the formal state structures, which I am part of, they offer scale, statutory authority, and access to national budgets and international legal standard. People ask me why I'm in politics. We need our youth, who are our future, to get involved in politics, not just in the continent, but in the diaspora, because that is the only way we will be able to survive and move forward. I don't remember exactly which country it was. Maybe it was Ethiopia, since it was the only one who was not colonized. But the leader said, I will send you forth to their countries, learn how they do their things, and come back and teach us. And that is the way they survived. Now, the national budgets are very important for us to find out how they spend their money, why they spend their money, yeah? And the international legal standing, which can be very distant, bureaucratic, in contrast to our communal ones, are often misaligned with our local realities. This is why using the governance that was imported to us does not work in Africa. We need to revert back to our traditional ways, our indigenous ways of ruling our country and our people. A frank comparison shows clear contemporaries, legitimacy, proximity, moral authority on one side, and legal power, which a lot of the global north has, technical capacity, and fiscal resources on the other hand. Now, I'm not saying we don't have fiscal resources, we do. But unfortunately, we are not the ones controlling our fiscal resources. We need to change this. We see that there's a change coming up. The Sahel group is already taking over. They pushed out all their former colonial powers, and this is a movement that we need to unite and help to empower, because this is honestly the future. Everybody's already saying Africa is the future, but depending on who you speak, what Africa? Through whose eyes? Now the challenge and the promise for an African Renaissance lies in harmonizing these systems, like I already said, so that each reinforces the other rather than competes, which is what is happening at the moment. The path forward must center on cooperation, mutual recognition, and practical mechanisms for co-governance. Recommendations should prioritize legal recognition of customary roles where consistent with human rights, institutionalized consultative and decision-making channels between the kings and the queens, the chiefs, if there are any, I stand corrected, and state actors are capacity building in administration, financial management, and digital tools, which is very, very important for traditional institutions. Protection and community land rights should be put in place. Gender and youth-inclusive reforms that preserve tradition while advancing equity and integrated approaches to natural resource management, conflict prevention, and local economic transformation should be put into place. Now, if we anchor all of these reforms in the AU frameworks, such as Agenda 2063, and the African governance architecture, this will help align the local innovation with continental priorities and measurable indicators for progress. I will run to my recommendations in the, because of time. So, the key recommendations would be legal recognitions of traditional leaders in national constitutions or statutes with clearly defined mandates and safeguards for human rights, We need to do this on an international level, we need to do this on national level, and we need to do this as well on platforms like the AU. We need to establish formal consultative councils at local, regional, national levels to ensure routine collaborations between the traditional leaders and elected officials. Last year, the UN had something called the UN Summit of the Future. Now, before the Summit of the Future, because I attend a lot of these UN conferences, and I have seen what goes on, I decided to organize called the pre-conference to the UN Summit of the Future. And that is actually how King Tanyi and I met, because I invited 26 traditional leaders from the continent to Geneva, all expenses paid for 4 days, to have a conference with us in Geneva, and I also invited the youth from Africa to take part. Then I invited members of parliament, because I have another NGO that brings together members of parliament of African descent, not just in Europe, but in the US, Brazil, Trinidad and Tobago, Canada. So they came together, and this was a youth-led conference. What we did was called reverse mentoring. Not the elders teaching the youth, but the youth telling the elders what they would like to see their future. Because they are the future. We need to listen to them. Yeah? So we did the first 2 days in Geneva, and on the last day, I took them to Parliament in Switzerland. That is something that has never happened, and I don't think will happen again. And I was so proud of these traditional kings and queens. They came in their royal regalia, you know? We had people with horns. We had somebody with a porcupine, you know, a porcupine crown. And every time they went through the security check, it would beep. It took us 2 hours to get these people through the security check. And our police, military police, at the parliament were getting so frustrated. And I would just stand there and say, no, you cannot ask him to take off that. That is against our tradition. No, you cannot ask her to take off that. If she takes off that, her skirt will fall off. No, and I, I kept on, giving all this, but it was amazing. Parliament in Switzerland has never seen so many people from the continent at one time in that building. And all of these were kings and queens, people with authority, And they came to speak to the parliamentarians who were also really shocked. And the other thing is, because of our traditions, we don't have to tell each other, this is how we do it. You are born and brought up like that. So we had kings walking in. Then we had the queens in the middle. Then we had some more kings at the back. So the kings were protecting the queens in the middle. We didn't even have to speak about it. When the parliamentarians approached and King Tanyi was in front to speak to them, he held up, his royal symbol there, and he said, you do not give me your hand until I extend mine first. I tell you, they did me proud. That is all I can say. But the discussion was really, really met well as well, because this was the first time that members of parliament in Switzerland had ever been confronted with African royalty, African power, coming to tell them, for the UN Summit of the Future, we are the future, Africa is the future, this is what we expect. They were not asking, they were saying, this is what we expect, and this is what you might get. So that was an amazing conference. Okay, back to what I was saying. We need to invest capacity building, just like I said, with the youth. We also need to invest in financial management. And this is where the African diaspora comes in. A lot of the African diaspora, because they live in the global north, have found ways of generating more income, which they are willing and are actually spending, investing in Africa. We need to tap into that a little bit more. Another thing is, a lot of people underestimate the role the African diaspora can also play in our leadership. Good example is, in 2016, there was an immigrant woman, and I will use that term because that is the term that is used in the global north, from Somali, who was living in Finland. She was still an immigrant. She didn't have the citizenship yet in Finland. She decided to run for presidency of Somali. Although she's in Finland asking for refugee status, she decided to run for presidency. The media was all over this, and rightly so. Okay, she didn't win, otherwise she would be the president right now. But because of this, we got our first ever female president in Ethiopia 2 years later. So, people also ask me why I stay in politics, because the sentence, politics is a dirty game, is not a joke. And the higher, the dirtier. The more global north, that's what I meant. So, I stay in politics because I may have been a first, I am not going to be the last. I usually say, when you let me in, I put my foot at the door, and I let in my village. Most people laugh when I say this because they think I'm joking. I'm not. So, I'm doing this for the youth, so that when they see me, they know they can do this, because you cannot be what you cannot see. In my case, I decided to be what I cannot see, so that everybody else behind me can be what they can see. Now, to conclude, we need to strengthen online global platforms for peer learning. I already talked about the Afrofuturism among traditional authorities. Hopefully, this can be supported by the AU, technical assistance, and funding channels. And if not, like I said, the African diaspora is more than willing and able to support this kind of movement, because this movement is rooted in the cyberspace. So we can connect each other in a very short space of time by intentionally blending the moral authority and local wisdom of traditional leadership with the technical reach and fiscal capacity of modern institutions. Africa can accelerate a renaissance rooted in dignity, justice, and shared prosperity. I'm hoping that this conference will be a pivotal moment, and it is, to transform comparative insight into collective action. The general said, Africa must rise. I agree. But I'd like to take it a step further, if I dare, and I do, and say, Africa is rising. Let's unite and claim our rightful role as the architects of the next global economy, the next global future. Because Africa's greatest glory, from the colonial time to now, is not in never falling, but in rising every single damn time we fall. Thank you.
Wow, that was really lovely. Thank you very much, Yvonne. Your Majesties, why should we continue to be in a dark continent if we have our children out there? They are in all various fields, in the academia, everywhere they are there. And we know that the political realm actually controls the economical realm, the cultural realm, and the social realm. And I think now that we're talking of a renaissance, we're talking of the rebirth, Yvonne, we must agree here that we are starting on a new page. This issue of politics is a dirty game, comes to an end today. We do not, I'm happy that you brought to our attention that some of you, our children, are politicians. You are not doing us justice. We don't want just to see you when it is time for elections. No. In Zambia, we chase. In Zambia, we don't play. If we vote for you, you go for good. When you come the next time, we actually chase. In Zambia, we chase. So now we are extending it to Africa. We have agreed to change their language. From a dirty game, now we are going to have a clean game. Don't promise us to build us an airport when the king has no aeroplane. How? So come and build. Come and engage us so that the politicians, the government, and the traditional leadership must be in one accord. Yvonne, you have really impressed us when you talked about Africa without borders. And this is actually now the cry of the whole of Africa. And I think the Traores of this world, in Burkina Faso, Somalia, and I think Kenya, they have actually paved the way. We are leading to an Africa that will have one bank, meaning an Africa with one currency. We are looking at an Africa with no visas. We are looking at an Africa. Look at the codes. Every time I'm given a number, I have to go on the Google. Your Highness, which country? Oh, Kenya. Oh, no, Tanzania, Ethiopia. Oh, the 54 countries have different codes. These are artificial. Look at, we are talking about the cultures. We are all one. Whether you call it Umoja, Chachacha, Ubuntu, let us come together and rewrite our own history. Because here, as we are deliberating, we are all agreeing that Africa is home to everything in terms of art, folklore, culture. She's talked about the restoring, and with the elders, like His Excellency here, we all know how we used to transfer the traditional knowledge from one generation by the campfires. This time, we don't even see the blue moon. We don't even see the wonderful stars. Immediately, it is 5 p.m. We are all locked up. The father is very busy on social media. The mother is on TikTok. The child is on Facebook. They are all busy. They're not even talking to each other because of modernity. We have lost our cultural African values. But I'm happy that the people in diaspora, our children, have seen the need to come to Africa. They are now in Ghana, they are now in Nigeria, most of the countries, they are coming back. In Zambia, for example, Eoshaure Olisa from Atlanta, Georgia, she came, we assisted her form even the Macmillan Company. We've given her even land. We have also Apostle Chris and the wife from Tennessee, USA. All the African kings and queens, they have enough land So those of you in diaspora, please, and also the Friends of Africa, encourage them to come and invest in Africa. We want also to encourage you, our children in diaspora. We have challenges in Africa because they store our youthful children. Even the big brains, they left us with the old people. Therefore, the acquired knowledge, the acquired skills, the expertise, and the financial muscle that you have gathered in the diaspora, come back to your home, come back to your roots. Yes, as traditional leaders, we have enough land. We have a youthful labor, as you saw from here. They can do everything, but we lack the finances, we lack the expertise, and this is why we are calling upon you to come to Africa. We are also happy that we are barring the issue of blame game, where now the diaspora people are blaming us for selling them. Us also, we are blaming those in diaspora. Why are you still in America? Why are you still in Japan? You are busy enjoying and eating. So the blame game is not going to help us. It's better we create synergies so that we now have this value addition that we want. We are happy we are talking about unity because the most aspect that we are missing is the unity. The white people also look at us, who is greedy. No, mwantaishi my lives in money. So they will come, can you betray your brother? They create that confusion, especially us who have the minerals. She has touched the issue of resource management. All African countries are rich. The problems in Congo, DRC, that is the most richest country in Africa. And we don't realize why they divide us. Not until we sit down on the drawing board and find out why are we fighting amongst ourselves as brothers. Because while we are busy butchering ourselves, they are getting our mineral resources. And that is the resource management. And I'm happy in Zambia, that class, the Royal Highnesses that you see here, they started with a diploma with Chalimbana University, where they have gone back to school to be taught about ICT, to be taught about law, to be taught about all areas, so that that time where the Lubengulas or the Lewanikas, the Sis roads, could just make us sign without understanding what we were signing for is long gone. That time when traditional leaders would just sell a piece of land with either a gun or with a mirror is long gone, because most of these traditional leaders are businessmen in their right. So we need the support of you, our children in the diaspora. To conclude, I think, Yvonne, that was a wonderful presentation together with Princess Kana, and also Your Excellency. That was great. We really value your presentations. Please let us also make sure that as we interact, we exchange numbers. I'm happy that she's talked about our traditional leaders going out. One request that I would want to make, because I travel a lot, the way we are mistreated it is not right. Here is your child, because he's a cadre, and then likely he becomes an ambassador. I will give you at the AU, because every year we are there. It's so dehumanizing, so demonizing. I was with King Tanya in Ethiopia. The military, they were busy now saluting, Your Excellency. You hear the title, even the title is prestigious. Guards, everybody with weapons. King Tanya was just like a cowboy with us, paving way. All the chiefs or the kings, there was nothing like a paving way for the politicians. I think we have disregarded the traditional leadership. We've disregarded the indigenous knowledge. And because we have parted away from our roots, that's why we have missed the road. We need to go back to our indigenous knowledge. We will also be having a capacity building and a business function in Poland. We would encourage to invite you. We are still looking at the logistics, how we'll go there, but right up now, we are simply gathering the names of people who are interested to go that way. The last issue I wanted to bring also is the passports. The traditional leaders, just like Yvonne was saying, we are made to remove the belts. In some countries, they have nothing with your tradition and custom. They just remove your belts, remove your shoes, especially us where we come from. When this crown, like she was saying, you can't remove it anyhow. But you are made. So our politicians, when it comes to enumerations or incentives where the chiefs or the kings and queens should be better, Yvonne, I'm engaging you. You are not helping us as politicians. And that is a challenge. Please, can you help all the kings and queens to have diplomatic passports? There is no way a king, you every time in our own country, in Africa, even Eswatini, we are there, remove Eswatini, where there's a king. We are made to remove our belts and issues. Politicians, yes, we are giving you the whole of Africa. We need to change that narrative. Thank you. It has been a wonderful session, and my challenge to my fellow traditional leaders, you've heard from your sons, you've heard from your daughters. They are ready to come and invest in your lands. Where's His Royalness Chief Chibuika Kasenseli? Wave your hand. You need to talk to that man. We call it Kasenseli. If you have not, just Google Kasenseli. There's gold there. We used to pick gold, not digging, no, picking gold. But today, just like you are called illegal immigrant, we are called illegal miners. It does not sit well. We discovered that gold on our own. It is in our chiefdom. But when the gold is discovered, you, the politicians, Yvonne, comes in to give us colonial rules, British rules, because they colonize us. So we are starting, and your Royal Highnesses, your Royal Majesties, let us change the narration so that it is us to give them the rules, not the other way. Your Majesties, tomorrow is another beautiful day. We want to thank you for your engagement today. I think we had a wonderful day. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. God bless you all.